Hi, Uncle Vic. I'm Ani. But who I'm is not important. Important is who you are. So, do you mind just going like the history, like how do you started chess and like the whole thing? How did it all happen?
I was 7 years old and I was rummaging through cabinets in the house. I came across this set and I asked my father what it was. He told me it was a chess set. He showed me how the pieces moved and left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, it simply is just a solitary pursuit.
Yeah. And then can you explain like chess growing up in Latvia, I believe, right? So
Yeah.
during the Soviet Union era. So how was that like?
Well, when I was in first grade, it was the Soviet Union that had occupied the country. And on the 1st of May, we were all given little flags to wave and go out there. And if you lost the flag, being a first grader, then the teachers would supply you another flag.
Mm-hmm.
But on June 14th, 1941, the city of Riga, which is about the size of Seattle, about 30,000 people were deported because both the communist Russia and Nazi Germany had their list of people that they considered undesirables. With the Nazis, it was easy to tell who was on the list. With the communists, it could be anybody, even denunciations by your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So, although they had agreed to split Europe, about a year later, Hitler decided he hadn't had enough, so then he invaded the country, and for the next 3 or 4 years, it was under German occupation.
Mm-hmm. So how did you like? How did you end up in the U.S.? Like, what was the journey like? If you don't mind sharing.
By the end of the war, troop ships were coming in with soldiers and munition, and they were going back empty. So everybody that did not want to have a re-experience of communist Russia went west.
Mm-hmm.
And on the last day of the war, I was actually at a point between the armies. It wasn't certain whether I'd would reach the Allied armies before the Russians. So it was about a half an hour difference, and we were on foot. And it was May 8th. I was 10 years old. I was wearing a winter coat and everything I could carry because that's what you had to do. You had to carry whatever you had with you.
Yeah.
Over the next 5 years, people like myself were in a refugee camp in Germany, in Allied zones. They were not called refugees because where would you be refugees from? Our ally, the Soviet Union. So they were called displaced persons. Just like people that don't have any housing right now are called unhoused. It's just, it's the same thing, it's just a different wording.
Yeah. And I think back then they had a steamboat, right? Cross.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took 7 days to cross by ship.
Okay. And then when you came to the U.S., like, is chess the first thing that came in your mind? Or like, how did you survive?
See, when you come from a background like that, you don't have any relatives or friends or network. You don't have any network people to rely on. So you start gradually working your way up, like 2-3 jobs. And then in your free time, you can still play chess if you have a mind to. And of course, in those days, any chess activity would be on the East Coast in New York or possibly in Los Angeles. And there was no air traffic. So if you wanted to go a place like that, it would take like 2 days by train or bus. So obviously, you didn't have the same kind of advantages that people have now.
Correct.
It used to be that you could have just coaches and trainings on golf or tennis. Now it's possible in chess also. So when Bobby Fischer played in the 1955 Junior Championship,
right.
This was in Lincoln, Nebraska. He would have got there by either train or bus over 2 days.
So, speaking of, actually, I want to go back to that Bobby Fischer, but I kind of want to go on a chronological order. So how did you choose Seattle? Like, so how did that happen? Like,
well, after Lincoln, Nebraska, we found that the winters were okay, but the summers were humid and hot. So we exchanged letters with other people, and they said the climate out on the West Coast is much more agreeable. So we got in the car and went to Washington State. I've been in Washington State since 1953.
Oh, wow, okay. And at that time, what was the chess scene like in Washington State in 1950?
There were some tournaments. There was even a state championship also, because I first played in the state championship in 1953. They were in the basement of a hotel downtown at 7th and Madison. The freeway goes through there now, so there's nothing there. It was, let's say, a third-rate or a fourth-rate hotel.
Okay, so when you came to Seattle, 1953, did you started playing for the Washington Chess Federation? I mean, did the Washington Chess Federation existed back then, or?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
But like I say, tournaments were more local.
Yeah.
Because New York or Los Angeles were unreachable.
Correct. Okay.
Even if you had the time and inclination.
So, okay, so starting from that point, and then 1956 you played Bobby Fischer, right, or 55?
It's 55.
55. So so you just saw the junior championship and then you just took the train or something there and play Bobby Fischer?
I think I drove.
You drove? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then tell us some story about that particular tournament, like if you remember any.
Well, Bobby was 12 at the time. By the time he was 15, he was not only U.S. champion, but, competing for world championships and so on.
Right.
But in that particular tournament, he drew most of his games. And he was by himself, and he stayed with the tournament organizer's family. And his mother told him on the telephone to keep going to San Diego to another tournament. And he was reluctant. He really didn't want to. That's another 2 or 3 days on the bus.
Okay. So, did you have any interaction? I mean, beside the game, did you talk with Bobby Fischer? Like, did you have any interaction?
In the sense that, after hours, we'd be the tournament organizers home, and we'd, there weren't any video games at that time. We probably played poker or something like that. And Bobby was sitting on the floor analyzing on his little chess set because he was younger than the rest of the people. As a matter of fact, there are stories like when he was between 12 and 15 and so on, and going to these tournaments, he didn't fit in well with people that are a few years older. So, there are fights. There was crying.
Okay. And then when you beat Bobby Fischer, I believe that he flagged, if I'm correct, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, what was his reaction like? Did he, did you guys analyze the game or what?
No. He didn't cry, but he looked like he might be close to that. He was down.
Right.
And of course, I got the opportunity to rub it in, and said, your pawn, the black pawn was on h3, and when you captured it, I could put my queen on the h file, exchanged queens, and win on material. But if you had played King G1, drawn the pawn into H2, and then went to H1, that would not have happened. Well, so this is not a good analysis.
Right.
But it was an attempt to rub it in again. Yes. He did sign a score sheet. So yes, he's not illiterate, but it was in block letters.
Okay. So after, so when you came, so was there like news all over at that time when you beat Bobby Fischer in the chess world?
No, because he was not a name then.
Ah, right, that's correct. He was only 12, right? All right, so, and then after that, you came back to Seattle, and then do you have any stories you want to share, like from that era? Because this was before the last exit, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just fast forward to the last exit era. So when did you first went to the last exit? Like
it will probably be around 1965, 1970. That's roughly when the university district had, when the university didn't own all the property around there. So you could have small businesses and small land holdings and private houses and so on. Probably that, because by that time I already had a job in Kitsap County, which is where I live now. And so, I'd drive in and out just to go to the last exit to play chess. It was not a chess club,
Right.
but it was kind of a hangout where all kinds of people went. Some that were activists, some that were stoners, and some that were professors. And yes.
Yeah. And then did you had any like stories from there? Because I know Yasser, you used to play a lot with Yasser Sarwan, but I believe he went there in the kind of like in the early 70s or something?
Yes. Yes, that would be about right.
Okay. So do you have any stories of Yasser in the last exit? Like,
Well,
do you want to share?
Mainly, we had an in crowd. We knew each other, and then all of a sudden Yasser shows up and he rides a bicycle in from Garfield High School, and he wants to play. And again, just like when there's an age difference, then you kind of tease a person. Did you hear something? Was it under a table? Is there somebody under a table making comments about the game? And but he was not offended. He was a nice kid, and so he simply, learned what he could on the spot.
And so you're kind of like his coach in a sense, right?
We played probably more games than he has played with anybody else, and probably have more wins against Yasser than anybody else has against Yasser. But this is simply when he's moving up.
Right. So was this like blitz game or?
No. Well, yes, there were clock games going on. There were some tournaments and tournament games. As a matter of fact, there was one tournament in a state championship. Everybody was, Yasser, young prodigy, and paying a lot of attention. So when it was my turn to play Yasser, I pretended to be, half asleep and decrepit and, kind of out of it, just to give him a contrast.
So how did that game go? Did they?
Couldn't say for sure.
Okay. So let's see. So do you have any, I mean, I want to go to that funny story where you hit the state championship trophy.
Oh, yes.
And that's the same trophy we have right now, right? Is that exact?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing? Because that's a very funny story.
Well, they had an activity requirement. And you had to play 3 tournaments in Washington State. And I had played 2 tournaments and played to represent the state of Washington up in B.C., state versus province match. And they didn't count that. They said that I was disqualified. I had not met the activity requirement. And I said, okay, well, this probably would be 89, which is, I think, the last time I won the state championship. And so I said, if that's the case, you're not going to get your trophy back. And eventually, cooler heads intervened about a year later or thereabouts and so on. But in the meantime, yes, I had put the trophy in a plastic bag, and it was on an island in the Anacortes city forest lands in a lake. So eventually, they talked me to going the doings of the Washington Chess Federation. There was a time when I didn't play in Washington State for 6 years because I thought that the tournament director was biased and decisions would go against me. So I brought it up at the next annual meeting, and when the tournament director's name came up for election, I said, can you tell me if you are prejudiced? And there was a long silence, and then the chair ruled that there was no requirement in the statutes that prejudice or equal treatment was necessary. And I said, well, in that case, I'll play elsewhere. And for the next 6 years, I didn't play in Washington State. Somebody else won all the state championships. And then eventually, when I did come back, I did play, but not join the Washington Chess Federation. And they said, well, you can't do that. You've got to be a member. And I said, I don't want to. And somebody else paid the fee. So basically, I was qualified like that, but I didn't join.
Okay. So, wow, that's fascinating. So, I've heard stories of you and James McCormick.
Yes.
Now, are there stories of you and James McCormick you want to share? Like, I mean, I heard a lot of stuff, but so yeah, do you want to share some?
Well, he had a way of commenting on games because he would play Sicilian defenses and I would play long end games, and so he'd come back or come around from time to time and make a comment like, so this is what he has come to after 40 moves of play and things like that, And so I complained to the tournament director, no action, because this is one of those things, I felt that there was prejudice existing. So on a couple of occasions, I would simply wait when there was no action by tournament director. The next time this happened, on Sunday, at that round, I would hit him. But I would hit him at a particular moment when Bob Landine, who is about as big as you or bigger, was close by and could separate us immediately, so he couldn't hit back.
Okay.
There were several occasions like that, because after all, I feel that if you exhausted the legal defenses, what else is left?
So this happened while during a game, like physical altercation?
Yes, during a tournament, and while games are going on.
Wow.
Because there were various times. There was one time the tournament was at the YMCA and it was on the 6th floor. And so between moves, I went down in an elevator and got a cup of coffee. And so then I found out the elevator was not working. So I had to walk up 6 flights to get to the tournament room. And then I found out McCormick was there holding the elevator door open.
Oh, God.
Well, there were incidents like that, and so in the interest of fair play, what I like to do is I like to exhaust the legal defenses, and complain about it and see if there's action. Just like, if something happened to you, you'd probably call the police. Police doesn't act. You'd call the mayor doesn't act. Go to the hospital, you had to wait for 9 hours or something like that. Well, in that case, it's up to you.
Yeah. Oh, wow, okay. So, all right, so moving on, do you have any stories you want to share, like, to the viewers? Like that James McCormick story was, interesting. Like, I don't know, did you play any famous play? Like, someone asked if you ever played Tao, Mikhail Tao.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over the years, I have played in 24 states and in 4 foreign countries. So I've been a lot of places to play chess. Matter of fact, the most interesting one might be, usually I would leave work at Friday early afternoon and get back Monday early afternoon. And in the meantime, I could be anywhere. And the one time I looked at the tournament calendar and I had a choice of Berkeley or Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I said, well, Berkeley is full of all kinds of zombies walking the streets and talking to themselves.
Okay.
But Muskogee, Oklahoma, well, that sounds good because there was a hit song at that time. I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee, a place where even squares can have a ball. They still drink white lightning by the courthouse, and so on, so it was kind of like a counterculture against hippies. So
Yeah.
Muskogee, yes. And yes, I went there, played in a tournament, got back on Monday to go to work.
No, but did you ever play Tao, Mikhail Tao?
No, I did play Korchnoi. And there's, well, of course, the U.S. Masters. There were 3 Bs. There was Bisquire and Benko and Robert Byrne. I've beaten 2 of them, not Robert Byrne. There were other grandmasters that I played over the years.
Walter Brown?
Walter Brown, yes. I didn't win all my games, but I have won and several draws against Brown. Korchnoi, I played him just a few years ago in Las Vegas. And I had gone canyoneering, hiking in canyons, and taken a first round bye. And then I expected to be around board 40. To my surprise, when I dragged myself in, I was on board 1 against Korchnoi. He had drawn in round 1, and his contract said that no matter how he's doing, he's playing board 1. So that's when I had to play Korchnoi. I didn't last very long.
Okay. So, did you analyze the game with Korchnoi back then, or was it like did he speak with you? Did anything happen or?
Oh, yes, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, the grandmasters or celebrities of any kind are not very conversational because,
Right.
everybody wants a piece of their time. So they're just polite.
Okay. Any interaction with any other famous? You told me about Kasparov. So your wife spoke with Kasparov.
Yes, she did.
Do you mind
Nice
sharing
one.
that story? Yeah.
Well, she manages to make friends with everybody and talks to everybody, and I guess, draws them out. Because Kasparov does not have a good reputation of being conversationalist either. And yet, while I was playing chess, she had engaged him in a conversation because she asked him, did his application for Latvian citizenship come through? Because he had left Russia and was looking to acquire a residence permit someplace else in some other country. And she said, no, they had been dragging your feet, so he got Croatian residence and maybe citizenship.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's.
And they went on from that. They had a long talk.
Okay. Did you had any interaction with any other famous player you wanna share?
Well, that depends on how many grandmasters you know. Because, for instance, Daniel Friedman now lives in Germany. He was born and brought up in Latvia, as are Nimzovich, incidentally, and so on, and Mikhail Dahl. So, yes, I played Friedman in 1993 or 1996 in a tournament in Latvia. Well, after he moved to Germany, he's been German champion several times, and he's not a youngster anymore, but he's a solid grandmaster. And then many other grandmasters, because from time to time you wind up having to play somebody like that. You're paired.
Right. So, a lot of people ask, how do you keep going? Like, I mean, how is that possible? Like, is this some kind of gene thing? So what do you say to that? Like, how do you keep going chess? I mean, and your chess games are always long. It's not like short games. They're like 5-6 hour games. I mean, how is that possible?
Well, basically, we are in this world for the long run. I prefer, one job, one marriage partner, and so on, and one this and one that, and live in the same place. Well, that's about the way I play chess. Now I'm a little more scatterbrained than that. But generally speaking, yes, I would be very solid in lengthy games.
Okay, so speaking of, so a little bit personal, really speaking of marriage partner, I heard this story where you said before your wife became a wife, you told your wife that I'm married to chess.
Well, no, I don't recall that.
Okay, all right. So that may be a wrong. Okay, so how did you met your wife? Like, was it through chess or like, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, she worked in the last exit.
Okay.
And from time to time, when at the last exit, I knew her enough to say hello to. And then one day in Kitsap County, I find that she walks into my business and she's looking for a job. She's living in a forest here and not much money going on. And I took one look at her and I said, oh, I know who you are. I know you. You're hired. You could do it that way back then. This would be 1974.
Okay.
And so then shortly thereafter, I found out that if I was getting any kind of feedback from the boss, or some kind of undermining or things like that, she was protecting me. Like I say, she's a religious person and has, her own way of doing things. Particularly, there was one time when I am in the store with a security guy and we're putting in cameras. And she shows up for work early and finds the door locked, and she knows that I'm in there. And the security guy says, go get rid of her, tell her to come back later. So I do that, and within the next 5 minutes, the telephone rings, and she says, I know you're in the store and not by yourself, that there's somebody else in the store with you. Tell me what's going on, or I'm going to call the police. And the security guy says, let her in. She's doing the right thing. And there are other incidents similar to that. So basically, over time, although we were married to other people at the time, I knew who you can count on. You can rely on people like that. When you're 18 or so, they don't have a record of what they're like. But later on in life, they do, and you know who you can count and rely on. So eventually, I would have walked on hot coals for her.
And actually, yeah, we do see her come in tournaments, but she doesn't come anymore. Is that a reason why she doesn't come in tournaments anymore?
Well, in this particular case, you don't let her in.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But she does go to tournaments. And generally, particularly if you're going someplace like Reno or Las Vegas, she's there. There was one time when they questioned the fact that she was knitting, and they thought that she was signaling moves to me by knitting needles.
Oh.
Well, I suppose it's possible.
Yeah. How did that end it?
Well, eventually they were convinced that she was okay. So she has been admitted in even when other people are not necessarily.
Right.
So yeah, that's the way it goes. And the only other thing is that she goes to church on Sunday mornings. So sometimes Sunday mornings I might be playing chess, but she might not be there.
Okay. So going back to chess, so a lot of young people nowadays, they all depend on computer analysis, but you're from a different generation when there was no Stockfish, there's no Komodo or anything like that. So what do you have to say to the younger generation that always depends on chess engines and stuff like that? So
it's fine. That way they can get stronger faster and get. They can probably pick up in 6 weeks, or it might have taken me 6 years to do that because I'm entirely self-taught.
So you support that, or you support that way of learning?
That's just the way it is.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
That is the way it is. And so you have to, deal with things the way they are. Yes, the net result is that you can see that people don't leave pieces in take, and they have some positional understanding, and they are stronger than the average field would have been years ago. This is good.
Okay.
Because when I was in school, teachers said that, well, if you can get knights and bishops and rooks and get them to act in harmony, this is a transferable skill. It's like apples and oranges. If you can do that, you can use similar skills, a similar way of thinking in other fields of life.
Okay, interesting. Growing up, did you have any favorite chess book that inspired you?
No, not really. No. Basically, I'm self-taught and I like to experiment.
Okay.
Like, I wonder where this goes. It'd be, let's say you're driving on a Forest Service road and there's a fork in the road. You wonder where it goes. And sometimes to your detriment, sometimes things don't work out that well, but you're satisfying your curiosity, and that's what it's all about. It's curiosity. Because the computers and artificial intelligence can tell you what's already there.
Right.
But it doesn't give you room for creativity.
Do you have any message for the younger generation, like they want to improve in chess or whatnot, or they want to play a long chess career like you or something?
If you enjoy doing it, go ahead and do it. If you switch to something else later in life, enjoy doing that. And whatever is possible for you to do.
Right.
Because like I say, when I came to this country, there was no networking, there was no air traffic. I mean, it's a different world. And you make do with what you've got the best you can.
Yeah. How would you want your legacy to be remembered, if I may ask?
No reason to do that.
Okay.
The good that people do is often interred with their bones. The evil lives on after them.
Right. Well, Uncle Vic, that was really awesome. Oh, actually, before I end the interview, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the current world championship? Do you follow top level chess or?
I do, but there's too much of it. Because every time I find the same names. There's a group of about 10 or 20 people up on top, and they keep playing each other all the time. So that, well, just think of if it was like that in football.
Yeah.
If the Niners and Chiefs played each other every weekend, well, after a while it gets kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can't follow it all because there's too much to follow. That's another problem with the computers and everything like that. There is too much information.
Okay. Well, Uncle Vic, thank you for the interview. It's been really great. So, yeah, do you have anything else to say before we end the interview? Like any message or anything?
Well, keep your chin up.
Keep your chin
Stay
up.
out of trouble.
Yeah. All right.
Be polite.
Be polite. That's a good one. Thanks, Uncle Vic.
Yeah.
Thank you.